Steve Kerr, brought to you by the next generation 10G network, only from Xfinity. The future starts now. The head coach of the Dubs joins us here on Willard and Dibbs on 95.7 The Game. Hey, I think the last time we were talking to you, you were golfing. What'd you do with today's off day?
I am in my car heading home from the office, just getting ready for Sacramento. But I caught the last part of your conversation. I think you guys nailed. What a perfect metaphor! You nailed it.
What,
the box of chocolate?
Yeah, the box of chocolate. I mean, you know what? That's actually a good place to start, because earlier today I asked Dibbs. I go, hey, it's even within games. There's the first half Warriors, the second half Warriors. I go, can you remember a game where they played just 4 clean quarters? And so we should ask you, can you remember 4 clean quarters together?
It's been a while for sure, but I mean, yeah, that's just not who we are. That's not this year's team. And there's as Bill Parcells said, you are what your record says you are, and there's a lot of truth to that. So even though we can point to 7, 8 different games and say, man, we should have won that game and this game. We didn't. And so, we have been flawed, not for a lack of effort. I love the effort and the guys care and they're competing. But we've just been inconsistent, and we're really searching for that consistency, and we have been better, I think, of late. And, we're in a position where we can still achieve our goals. So we're going to keep moving forward.
Last night's a great example of what you're talking about, Coach. You give up 79 in the first half, and you're down by 10 at the half, and yet no sense of panic, and you come out and you right the ship. What was the mood like in the locker room, knowing that it wasn't a must-win, but a huge game, and yet you came out and you gave up 79 through 2 quarters?
Yeah, the mood was okay. I think it was important just for us to settle down and remind the players that, we were down 10, I think, at half. We didn't get any stops, but they were making everything. And we felt like we could be much better defensively, and that they weren't gonna make shots all night long. If we picked up our defense and our intensity and our ball pressure, that the game could swing, and it did almost immediately. We got right back in the game, and we held them to maybe 47 or something in the second half. So great effort from our guys, and I think that's where you can really see, a game like last night or the Pelicans last week. We have a championship group, and they've still got it. Like, they can still dig deep and really turn up the defense and swing a game. We're just not as dominant and as consistent and as deep as we once were, but that's okay. This is a really fun team, and we're working hard. Our guys are grinding.
Steve, now that Andrew is back with the team, what did he do today, and is there any update on the plan for his return?
Yeah, he scrimmaged today with some of our younger guys and some coaches. So it's full court, 5-on-5, and he looked good. And one thing with Andrew is that he's just got that God-given athleticism, and he's one of those guys who just doesn't seem to get tired very, very easily. A lot like Andre Iguodala. It's just he hasn't played in whatever it is 2 months, and he's out there running around and looking pretty good. But he still has to really stack together a number of days like this before he's really, I think, ready to go out and play in an NBA game. We can't put him in a bad spot health-wise. We got to make sure we build him up, get his strength and his conditioning in a good place before we put him out there. So he's not going to play in these last 2 games of the regular season, but he'll continue to work and he'll wrap it up pretty quickly.
Does that make being a playoff team all the more important in terms of what the schedule would look like? Because I would imagine tomorrow he's got an opportunity to maybe scrimmage again or practice in some sort of fashion. Then he doesn't play Friday. Saturday's a travel day. If you're a playoff team, does that help him inordinately to be ready for the following weekend?
That would help him, and it would help us because if you avoid the play-in, I think you end up with about 6 days off, and that's a time. Thinking back to last year, where we had some really good practices, we were able to install some things that we needed to install. Game planning wise, knowing our opponent. Add a few wrinkles here and there and get a couple of good scrimmages in. And if Wiggs can take part in that, then, which he would be able to do, then it's a really, really good kind of ramp up for him, not only physically, but mentally too, getting back into the mix.
Coach, can you expand on that a little bit, especially, having been there before? I know it didn't lead to the playoffs after you did it, but for this team, what would the difference be for your mentality, your physical side? What would the difference be in terms of having to go through the play-in tournament and not?
Well, the number one thing is you get the preparation time, the 5 or 6 days to get guys' minds and bodies right. You're at home. You get that prep time. Each guy needs something different. Some guys might need a couple days off. Some guys might need extra work, but whatever you need, you just do. And by the time game one comes around, you feel like you're in a really good place. But during the play-in, all that stuff goes out the window. It's like the regular season just continues. You play a game, a day off, and possibly another game. And when we experienced it a couple of years ago, obviously we lost both, and that was it. So, we know how dangerous the play-in is, and we'd love to avoid it if we can.
One more health-related from me, Steve. Klay Thompson seemed like a late scratch last night with the back issue. Is this a pre-existing sort of ailment? Is it something that popped up? What's your concern level for Klay Thompson's back?
It's not real high. I mean, this was something that just popped up really late yesterday and caught us off guard, and we had to change the the rotation, and we changed the starting lineup because of every lineup is it's built with all 5 guys in mind, and you take Klay out of most of those lineups, it changes everything, and then there's the domino effect. So that was what we dealt with last night. But he came in today, he was feeling a little better. He got some shots up, and I don't anticipate him being out for Sacramento.
Steve Kerr with us here, WIllard and Dibbs, 95-7 The Game. Coach, I thought an interesting post-game conversation that you had with regard to Moses Moody after a really great performance, and it raised some eyebrows for sure. You spoke about the maturity that he has shown this year through this process. I wonder if you could expand a little bit about what were those conversations like, and what exactly did he say to you throughout the year when he was not playing as much?
Well, Moses is an old soul. He's just got a lot of wisdom for someone so young and inexperienced. He was obviously raised really well. He comes from a great family. He's very grounded and practical. And when Bob and I sat him down 6 weeks ago or so, we asked him how he was dealing with not playing much, and he was so matter of fact. He just said, I chose to develop in the NBA, and part of that is sitting and having to earn my time. I could have stayed at Arkansas and played 35 minutes a night and developed on the court, but I chose to do so in the NBA. So this is part of it, and it was so eye-opening to hear a young guy say something like that. It's so rational and thoughtful, and it's one of the things I love about Moses. He's going to have a really successful NBA career, and he's going to be good for us for a long time. But he understands the path, and this year hasn't been easy on him. But frankly, a couple months ago he wasn't ready, and I think seeing him last night, seeing the progress over the last couple of months in practice every day, and his workouts, in his approach, I think he's much better now than he was, and I think he's earned some minutes.
And when he plays with that edge, and last night his offensive rebound off the free throw followed by the flat-footed, two-footed jam on the follow, does that make it now more difficult to figure out rotations because he's forcing his way into them?
Well, it's a good problem to have. That's what you want. You want to have to choose from a bunch of good options. And but I just feel like Moses has been through a great process of learning and playing every day, in practice and spending some time in the G League. And what I've noticed the last couple of weeks in the scrimmages is just his ability to use his strength and his understanding of how to use that strength around the basket. You saw it a couple of times last night. That offensive rebound was great. I mean, just, fantastic show of force and emotion. And so he's getting there. And, he has definitely, like I said, he's definitely earned more minutes.
Coach, there are always a lot of eyeballs and opinions about lineups and who's starting and who's finishing. Can you share with our listeners how you go about coming to decisions like that on a night in and night out basis, and in particular, a starting lineup last night where Lamb plays and then doesn't come back in the second half? What were the dynamics at play there?
Well, with Clay out, we wanted to try to get off to a good start, and the group we started has been starting second quarters for us the last couple weeks, and they've been really successful. I think, granted it's limited minutes, but maybe 50 minutes or so, 5-0. They've had a huge net rating, positive. There's been a good flow on the court. We've had good size on the wings with Lamb and Kuminga, and those guys have played well together all year. Poole and Steph obviously provide the scoring. Draymond kind of ties it all together. So that's the thinking. When Clay goes out, it's like, all right, let's find a good lineup that we can get off to a good start with. And then the other thing it does is it balances out your bench rotation. So now, you're coming off the bench with real strength with Looney and Gary Payton and Dante. And so that's kind of how we look at it. But you also have to adapt on the fly, and it didn't work last night. We got off to a slow start, couldn't get stops, and then you adjust from there. And in the second half, we found some groups that really clicked, and we just stayed with those groups. And that's kind of how it works on nights like that when you're missing people.
So going into the game, what's that jigsaw puzzle like in terms of your lineups? Who's available, and then what are our best lineups, and how do we best juggle these lineups to have our best five available at the end of the game? How long does it take for you and the coaching staff to go through and piece all that together?
Well, we didn't have much time. By the time we got word that Clay was out, we probably had 15 minutes. But these are things we're discussing all the time, who plays well with whom. And, we have all the numbers in front of us from our analytics department, good combinations, whether it's, two-man combinations, three-man combinations. We have a general sense of who plays well together and who doesn't. So it wasn't that difficult. You have a sense of these things. You try to get some proof, from analytics, and then you go and you got to, like I said, you got to adjust on the fly.
Can I ask you what numbers that you look at? Because Mark and I were having this discussion earlier, because we'll have debates and we all just pull numbers out of our back pocket, for lack of a better way to describe it. It's like, oh, this number proves my point. When you look at numbers, what numbers do you really look at and say, now that's a number that I like?
Well, if you're talking about traditional statistics, I always, at the end of a game in a box score, I always look at our assist to turnover ratio, and then rebounding numbers, and it adds up to the possession game. If I've always felt over the years that if we stayed pretty even on the possession game, meaning same number of field goal attempts as our opponents, that we were gonna win, because we had better shooters than everybody else with Steph and Clay and obviously Kevin for several years. And so those were always the first numbers that I looked at the box score. But if you want to go deeper into the analytics, I'm looking at 2- and 3-man combinations. groupings of players. It's hard with 5-man combinations because you don't get a huge sample size until really deep into the season. So you look at 2- and 3-man combinations. A good example is Kuminga and Lamb. For whatever reason, they've been great together, much better together than separate this year. So we like to put those guys together in our 5-man combinations at times.
Coach, you've admitted to scoreboard watching. Will you be wearing a Lakers jersey or a Clippers jersey tonight?
I'm still trying to figure it out.
Right? Us too. We were just doing this. I don't know who I'm rooting for.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, the easiest thing for us is to just win our last 2 games, obviously, and then we know we're in. But, Sacramento is going to be tough. We know that, and Portland's been playing everybody well. They just won in Minnesota a couple days ago, and so you just take care of your own stuff. But if we're to lose one of these 2, we're going to need some help. So there's a lot to sort out.
Is this time of year, being where you are, more exciting or more nauseating for you?
No, it's exciting. It's I think we love this. I mean, it's competition. It's not life or death. There's plenty of criticism that may come your way as a team, as individuals, whatever. But that's kind of part of the deal. We're all in this because we love to compete. We love the juice that comes with, competition, going out there on game nights and knowing there's so much at stake and feeling people's emotion in the crowd. This is great stuff. So I look forward to every game.
Steve Kerr with us, 17 minutes for GP2 last night. How is his presence changing things for you guys?
Well, he gives us obviously a great on-ball presence defensively, and then he's sneaky offensively. He'll knock down a 3. He understands how to work behind the defense and get little putbacks. And he had that great putback dunk last night. He had a big assist to Draymond underneath the basket late in the game last night. So Gary's he's a crafty player, kind of a power forward in a point guard's body, and so he's different. He presents a sort of a different challenge to the opponent, and it's great to have him back. He's a winner, and he's a guy who has impacted winning for us now for a couple of years. So we're thrilled to have him back.
Mark and I always rave about the restaurant quality of Dante DiVincenzo and the impact that he's had. How critical is it for you guys to be able to start him, bring him off the bench, or play him in any other fashion?
He's going to be successful regardless of the role he plays. You start him, you know exactly what you're going to get with that energy and just the force that he plays with. And last night we make the late change. We were going to start him all the way up until we found out that Clay was out. We make the change, and he immediately comes off the bench and changes the game, knocks down a couple threes, brings the energy. The crowd loves him. So Dante's awesome. He's just been such a huge addition for us this year. The guys love playing with him. He's fantastic.
Coach, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, we asked you sort of how you come up with your closing lineup. And if I remember correctly, you mentioned that, you start with what you know, which is that Steph, Clay, and Dre are in there, and then the rest is kind of matchup dependent. It's become a little bit of a hot button discussion for everybody in recent days with regard to Jordan Poole and whether he's in or out there. And he's obviously had a couple of games here where he's really closed well. Is there any chance he sort of breaks into that group that you mentioned where he's kind of an auto play for the Final Five?
Every game's just different, and if he plays like he played last night, it's automatic, but these games are all different, and the challenge is different each night, and what you're constantly trying to balance with every team, but I think especially with our team this year compared to Warriors teams of the past 8 or 9 years, is just finding the best balanced two-way lineup, because you got to get stops. And last night we closed with a super small lineup. It was Dante, Gary, Jordan, Steph, and Draymond. I think Loon came in late for Gary. But we were really small out there, but the game was going well for us, so we stayed with it. There's other games where it's not going so well, and you got to make that adjustment. So, what you hope for is what we had a few years ago, where you know exactly who your closing lineup is every night, because you have a two-way group that's going to survive any matchup. But that's not where we are right now.
Where you are is in the play-in at worst and controlling your own destiny to be a play-off team, and knowing that you're going to have additional games beyond the 82. How are you feeling about where your club is heading into the real big games here in April?
Well, I'm excited. Obviously, it's great to have Wiggs back in the building, and I think we're going to need him. If we're going to make some hay in the playoffs, we got to have him because of what we were just talking about, the two-way ability. Wiggs is in that group. You think about all of our playoff series a year ago, he's taken the best guy, whether it's Luka or Jason Tatum or whoever, and then he's given us 18 or 20 points a night, 4 or 5 offensive rebounds. He was brilliant, and that's what it takes to win a championship. That's why it's so hard to get where you're trying to get and win 4 rounds and raise that trophy. It takes great players, and it takes good health and some good fortune, and you need a little bit of all of that. And so we're thrilled to have Wiggs back, and hopefully we can get him back up and running here before too long.
Steve, if you had a vote for Coach of the Year, does that go to Mike Brown?
I already did vote for Mike. So we all get a vote in the Coaches Association. So there's I think there's 2 different Coach of the Year awards. One is from the media, one is from the coaches, and I voted for Mike. There's always guys who are worthy. A lot of guys have done really excellent work this year, but to me, Mike stands out. I think I think he deserves it.
I love it. Give him the award now, and then take him down in the playoffs, Steve. If that's what it comes to. I know you play Friday, you play Sunday, but I'm going to borrow from Jim Nantz and just say hello, friends, because it is the Masters. Are you going to watch it all, and do you have a Masters pick for the audience, Steve?
I will watch. I'm a golfing nut, and Steph and Andre and I will definitely be discussing all things Masters the next few days. I'm going with Xander Schauffele. That's my pick.
There you go.
I like it. God, he's been so close.
San Diego State. You're going to ride the Aztecs wave. That's what you're doing here, Steve.
Well, this. I'm a San Diego guy. That's kind of home base in the off season. So there's a little bit of a bias there for sure.
If you guys don't have a pool, I got a little action. If you need a taste, Steve, just let me know. Let your boy Dibs know.
I don't partake in gambling.
Okay.
They've got a pool. His name is Jordan. Steve,
you.
Yes, thank you very much, sir, as always.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right, there he goes.
Steve.
That is Steve Kerr, brought to you by the Next Generation 10G Network, only from Xfinity. The future starts
Our
now.
pool's just for fun.